Hello, it's Lion here with HobbiesofaMan once again, and today it's time for our wrap-up video for the month. So let's start with the stuff that I've been watching, and then we'll look at what I read. And reading is going to be divided into novels, comics, and then manga at the end. So feel free to skip to whatever section you guys like. And let's get started here. Let me find the page. Okay, so in terms of what I've been watching, I started the month off with Pacific Rim #2, and it was a horrible movie. I only liked one aspect of it, which was one of these robots. It was a tiny little Jaeger that had this ability to turn into a ball. It would roll around, and just the design of it and the way that it moved had a lot of character to it, which is wild because every character in this movie was non-existent, and the little robot had more character than all of them, even though it was just a machine. And, well, it was a really bad movie. They basically took everything that Guillermo del Toro did and shat all over it because nothing about it was interesting. The plot twist at the end where one of the characters that you thought wouldn't be a bad guy turned out to be a bad guy was bad. Everything just was horrible. I did not enjoy this movie at all. And John Boyega was given a really shitty character to work with. Very similar to how he got treated with Finn from Star Wars. And, well, it doesn't really... it was just not good. I did not really enjoy it at all. Then I watched the show called Entre Vías, or Between the Tracks, which is a Spanish TV show dealing with this old man who happens to have an ex-military background, who lives in this barrio, in this, borough or region of a city that has been overrun with immigrants and people that are different from him. And also, because it's kind of like a shittier area, there's also a lot of drugs and violence. And he wants these people out of his city. But, throughout the situations in the show, he realizes that the people are the same as him, even if they're from different countries. They speak differently, they talk differently, they do differently. It's just that there's people that are in power that force these people to end up living these kind of shitty, violent or drug-filled lives, right? And so he kind of has to figure out how he's going to stand up to those people, and it's really interesting. It's a really good show. The second season ends up being a lot more funny than the first one, which is kind of interesting, mostly due to the fact that, the main character is this, grumpy-ass old man, and he's very dry and mean, but the way that he talks to people is really funny to listen to because he's just, like, saying, all sorts of bullshit. And it's really fun, but it's also very dramatic and very kind of serious show. It tackles a lot of very serious things, and it's kind of interesting to see it from a Latin American perspective because in Spain, a lot of the people that fall into these shitty situations are actually Hispanic people that moved from their native country to Spain to try to look for a better life, and then ended up kind of in a worse situation than they were before. And it's pretty interesting to see that. So. Yeah, then I watched this anime called Dragon Pilot. Hisone and Mazotan, I think is the subtitle for it. It was really, really good. It's basically like Kobeni from Chainsaw Man becomes this dragon pilot because somehow she got swallowed by this dragon, and now she basically has this bond with this dragon, right? And it kind of starts off just kind of like a cute girls doing cute things kind of thing, where the thing that they're doing is piloting these planes that are actually like dragons that transform into these planes. And then it gets kind of serious, and it just deals with the fact that, Japanese people have very shitty, huge responsibilities on their shoulders from, the societal pressure of their country and, how everyone interacts with each other and with others. And then it ends up being this, magical realism thing at the end. And, it ends up with this very nice message of, the wacky people are meaningful and good people. And I think that for us Americans, it just kind of, it's just normal people. But to Japanese people, it's, odd. These people that are in these shows are very odd. And it's kind of interesting because, it's just this kind of, difference in how we understand, other people is very interesting to see, especially in media, where it's not exactly accurate to real life, but it still kind of carries this sense of this is something that stems from a real thought that people have, and I think it's fun. It reminds me of a lot of Shin Godzilla, where like the people that end up saving the city are actually like the weirdos, right? But they're not really weird. They're just like not, like they just don't fit into these slots of Japanese society the same way that everyone else in that movie does. And it's kind of funny because to us, they would just be like normal workers or normal people. But to the Japanese audience, it's like, oh, these guys are weirdos. Why? Because, you know, they don't dress appropriately, or because they have a piercing somewhere that they normally shouldn't have, or something stupid like that, right? I think it's interesting. Then I watched Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. It wasn't that good of a movie. I think I even fell asleep during a little bit of it because I was very tired that day. But the reality is that it's not a bad movie. It's just it didn't have to be a superhero movie. And the most interesting characters were not the main characters, if that makes sense. Honestly, I don't think I really enjoyed any of the characters, but I had fun with the way that the story unfolded, with the visual effects, and, you know, the fact that it was basically a, you know, kind of like at the Earth's core type story, like a hidden world type story, but in a kind of wacky way. And it was pretty interesting, like, visually. It's just that, I to begin with, I don't really like Ant-Man that much. You know, the first movie was good. I never watched the second one, and the third one was, like, all right. Like, I didn't really care. It was mostly, at this point, I just go watch Marvel movies because I'm going to watch all of them. I've watched all of them at this point, and I'm going to continue to watch them just because they're kind of like events that people converse around, so I kind of want to keep up with that. Which honestly, for Disney, that's like a great business model. If you keep people, you know, thinking that they want to watch this so that they can talk to other people about it, you're basically never going to run out of people watching those movies, right? So, yeah, sometimes they surprise me and they end up being really good movies, like The Eternals, which I really liked. And sometimes they end up being kind of shitty, not really all that good in, like, movies or TV shows, like, you know, She-Hulk or... what's the one with the Pakistani girl? Miss Marvel? Yeah, so... Yeah, I don't know. I didn't really like it, but I didn't really hate it either. It was kind of, like, ambivalent about it, if that makes sense. Then I watched the 3 John Wick movies that I managed to buy last month for $5 a piece, which was awesome that I got them for that price. And also, I really enjoyed these movies. I think the first one is probably the most enjoyable, just because it's, like... It's very stylistic, but it doesn't go into like Fast and Furious type realms of like ridiculous. The second and third ones are also good and enjoyable, but to me, they do feel like a little bit too long sometimes. So I think that I'm going to have that same kind of thought process for John Wick 4, but it's going to be different because I'm going to go watch John Wick 4 at the movie theater, where the experience is a lot more enjoyable than watching it in a home theater, even if my dad's home theater is pretty awesome, right? So, yeah. Then I watched Luther, The Fallen Sun with my parents. I watched it because we had nothing better to do. And cool movie, actually. I thought it was really, really good. Idris Elba and, what's his name? Andy Serkis were really, really good in that movie. And it was good that you didn't really have to know anything about Luther because it's a TV show. Because Luther is a TV show that Idris Elba is in, that has been going on for a while, and then Luther, The Fallen Sun was a movie kind of event for that, and you didn't really need to know anything except that, you know, Luther was this, like, cop that kind of strayed from the straight and narrow, and it's good, and I liked it a lot. I thought it was a really good movie. Is it kind of, you know, maybe not the right thing in terms of, like, the messaging it sends? Like, you know, it says that this cop did shitty things, but because he did them in the name of good, it's okay. Maybe, but like, it's a British movie, so they don't have the same, the exact same kind of issues with the police that we have here in the U.S. So I think it's fine. And it was kind of interesting, anyways. It was a good movie. The villain was really, really good, and I liked it a lot. Then I finished watching The Last of Us Season 1. And I liked it. I thought the last episode was kind of, I wouldn't say lackluster, but it wasn't as as epic as I thought it would be for the finale, right? I think that's just because, broadly speaking, The Last of Us is significantly more like down to earth than most other, big event TV shows that I watch. Mostly because it is just about this guy and this girl walking through a desolate area, and sometimes they encounter zombies or shitty people. And so I feel like it was just because the nature of the show was not as over the top in terms of oh, this shit is crazy. It did feel a little bit lackluster, I guess, or it didn't feel as awesome as I thought it would be. But Joel going all John Wick on people's ass was pretty cool. So I did enjoy it a lot. I thought it was good. But it after the end of the last episode, or the one wherever they were doing, where they were with that cult guy, which I do think was the previous episode, it kind of ended on a really high note. And then it kind of just had to go back down a little bit to finish off. And I feel like it should have finished off really high, right? So I don't know. Maybe that's just me. I don't know how you guys feel. Let me know down in the comments. And I watched this movie called 65. And I watched it in the theaters. I did a review for it a few days ago. And I don't think I was harsh on the review. But thinking back on it, I did enjoy it. I feel like now that it's been a few days and I don't really have the kind of visceral, I just experienced this kind of feeling, it's not that bad of a movie. It's not that good. I still think that it's pretty middle of the road. It's not that great, but it's not a horrible movie. I think it's a little bit better than I really said it was in my review. But I do have to say that my criticism about the dinosaurs is still 100% legit what I feel. They didn't feel like dinosaurs. They felt like these little weird alien lizards. And if that was the case, they really should have just made the movie about a dude crashing on a non-human, on not Earth, on a real place or a different world that wasn't Earth, and then just had them be dinosaur-esque aliens, and that would have been fine, right? So I don't know, maybe that's just me, and I think maybe it would have been better if they didn't tell us that it was Earth, and that they had all of these reptilian things, and then fans of the thing, people that would develop a cult following around this movie could have theorized that it was, Earth, and then 10 years from now, the writers could have been yeah, it was Earth the whole time, but we made the dinosaurs different just so you guys couldn't tell immediately because we thought it would be an interesting kind of thought experiment, right? And that would have made the movie cooler in retrospect, but they didn't do that, so it's not cool. It's kind of lame a little bit, actually. And then the last thing I've really been watching is The Mandalorian, and I did a mid-season review about it because I did want to talk about this idea that people are a little too hung up on the fact that the Mandalorian structure or the formula for the show has always been one big quest per season. But I don't know if you guys noticed, but that has been broken a lot, by a country mile, I guess. It's been so severely messed up because the quest. The next quest after giving Grogu to the Jedi started in the Book of Boba Fett in Chapter 5, right? So, if that quest started in another show, it had 3 episodes to deal with that, and then it ended halfway through Season 1, or Season 3, then the formula for that quest, for the one quest per season thing, is broken. So, it doesn't really affect the way that the storytelling is being told now, right? So the way I think about it is that so far we've had 3 quests for the Mandalorian. The first one was Protect Grogu, which was the first season. The second one was Get Grogu to a Jedi, which was the second season. The third quest, which is half in the Book of Boba Fett and half in Season 3, was redemption from removing his helmet, stopping himself from being an apostate. And along the way, that helped them connect with Bo-Katan, which then leads into the quest that is, quest number 4, which is basically what they set up in episode 5, which is we need to unite the tribes of Mandalore and we have to go back to our planet. And, well, there you go. It's perfectly fine. The formula still works to an extent. The idea that the Mandalorian is no longer focusing on Din Djarin or that it's not set up logically like the first 2 seasons is wrong. You guys are just not looking at it correctly. because you're stuck on the fact that, you know, one quest per season, it only works that way on it, when obviously it does not. Should it have? Yeah, probably. It should have still maintained that formula because it is very easy to understand. But, you know, they didn't because they needed to make money off of the Book of Boba Fett, and that show was not going to make money without The Mandalorian, so they had to do that, or they felt like they had to do that. And so we need to go over this idea that, you know, one quest per season is the way to go, because it clearly isn't, right? So that's it for that. I'll stop, you know, spreading my ideas about that, because you know, I've done it a few times over on Twitter and YouTube at this point. So, okay, and now moving on to what I've been reading, specifically the novels. I did finish Second Chance Swordsman and reviewed it already. I also finished Reborn a Hero Asher Merrick by Solomon Ignis as well. I'm going to review that Saturday or Sunday, depends on when I have time to do it. And that means that I finished 2 out of the 4 things that I had left over from last month. Then I had 2 novels for this month, which were Solo Leveling number 6, which is right here, and I finished it. It was really, really good. And the Akahoshi Sci-Fi Book Club number 1, which I also finished. And I finished this earlier today, actually. And I had a good time with it. So I'm going to leave my thoughts for this one pretty vague. And I'm going to do a review for it probably next weekend, because this weekend I already have like 4 videos planned. So, you know, it depends on how I shuffle it around. But if it's not this weekend, it'll be the next. So I'll figure it out, and you guys will see it, you know, if you're subscribed to the channel. So, yeah, let me talk about Solo Leveling first. Or actually, I may go back and talk about Second Chance Swordsman again. So, really good book. It was very enjoyable. However, the first 30% of the book, which is mostly the initial grinding phase of the story, is not that enjoyable, or at least it wasn't enjoyable to me at the time I started reading it. So when I came back to it, I had to backtrack a little bit, experience a little bit of that grinding, and then move on to the proper storyline. And once I got into the proper storyline, it was really enjoyable and really, really good. And the way that Jakob Tanner wrote this book was awesome. It worked very, very nicely. And I just like had a great time with it. I read it really, really fast, even though it's a huge honker of a book at 660 pages. Moving on to Reborn a Hero, Asher Merrick. This one was also really good. It ended basically very well, so that, you know, if Solomon Ignis never wanted to write another book in the series, that would be perfect, and it would stay as a standalone, but also had enough of it going on that you could definitely make another book about it. And I actually would like to see another book in this series, because I really enjoyed Asher Merrick and his relationship with the 4 girls in the book, and I would like to see them expanded on and kind of bring in other characters to join their little merry band, right? So, yeah, Solomon Ignis also has another book that just recently came out, which is kind of more of a slice of life, kind of like food comedy thing. That sounds really fun. I am thinking of doing a food-based, you know, series of videos like during Thanksgiving or like during November, due to the fact that Thanksgiving is like a big food holiday, and you know, I could do like an isekai gourmet series review set for that month. So I'll see if I can get him to send me that that book. I think it's called Slice of Life, and it's like a pizza and a goblin girl. And if I can't, I will review it at some point in November. And if I can't, well, I'll buy it, I guess, and then I'll see if I can buy it and review it on my own accord, right? So, yeah. Now properly moving to the 2 books that I showed you. Solo Leveling number 6 was really, really good. It basically gives us a huge kind of clarification where Jin Woo is basically way stronger than everyone else on this planet, and he has to be, because things are coming his way and he needs to be prepared for them, and it's really, really good. There's also some emotional beats that happen here and near the end of the novel that were really, really good. Jin Ho gets some development in terms of like his emotional state and his relationship with Jin Woo, which is also really, really good. And I really enjoyed it overall. And the lion here is a pretty good representation of what happens in the book, so I like that a lot. Then Akahoshi Sci-Fi Book Club. Devils and Angels is actually the name of this first book, and the Akahoshi Book Club is actually the title of the series, I guess. Quickly, I do have to say that I really don't like this art style. However, I like that it makes you very aware of what these characters really look like, and you don't have to guess, which is really nice. However, it just has a very uncanny valley feeling to it that makes it kind of off-putting initially. Once you get used to it, though, it's very nice and very enjoyable, and I actually ended up not liking the art style, but being okay with it. And it provided me more than I thought it would initially, so it's kind of nice, and I quite like it in that sense, because it makes it very clear what these characters look like, and I like that a lot. However, the fact that it is a little bit uncanny to look at kind of is off-putting, right? But, you know, it balances out. Overall, it's kind of like a middle-of-the-road feeling for me, which I think is a feeling I have for a lot of things, but, you know, whatever. But the story was good. You read it, and you would think that it kind of would be a very action-packed series, and I think it will be eventually, but initially, this first book is mostly just interacting with the characters, developing their connections, and then kind of setting up so that we can get to a more serious, like, action-packed type thing later on. I would say that if you want references to what this feels like, it feels a little bit like Haruhi Suzumiya, a little bit like High School DxD, and a little bit like To Love Ru. So it kind of has that vibe going for it. It also has a little bit of like Toradora in it as well, which I like. I thought it was really, really good and really enjoyable. However, there are some slight problems with it that I mostly think come from the fact that Antonio Blanco, sorry, I want to say his name in like English, but you know, it's not the correct pronunciation, so I'll say it correctly. Antonio Blanco is just a newer writer, or maybe it's that he doesn't speak English correctly. I'm not really sure, but there's certain like things here and there that just kind of like sound off, or ways of expressing things for the characters that don't really make sense for the type of people they are, like teenagers. And I think that that's just a thing about being a new writer. And I think it's fine. It really doesn't do anything except add a little bit of charm to the novel, like from an outside perspective. But while you're reading it, it is a little bit off-putting here and there. But generally speaking, it was a very good book. So I will review it properly here soon. Moving on to the comic books. Let's talk about them. I have a few of them that I really liked, and then a few of them that I really didn't care for. So let's start with the big, massive one here. We have The Forged. Let me see if I can show you this way, which is really interesting and really cool. Basically, it's this sort of like Warhammer, Halo, Gears of War type thing, where there's this super soldier program that's made up of all women that happen to be genetically based on the queen of this intergalactic empire. And they drive these giant robots, and they're sent on a mission, and it turns out that the mission is probably very different from what they initially thought, and they're going to have to deal with it, right? And it's pretty good. It has a lot of world-building, like, essays at the back that explain, you know, stuff about the story that just wasn't able to be explained to you in the story, just because of the constraints of the medium. But it's pretty good. I like it. I think it's really enjoyable. I like the size. However, I really wish that there was a cardstock version that had like very thick covers, because these are very flimsy, and it makes it very difficult to kind of play with the book or hold the book properly because it's just so large. So yeah, moving on here, we have Death Dealer number 10, I think. Let me double check that. Yeah, number 10. This one was pretty good. It kind of ends the arc, so I will review the second arc of this story, which should be chapters or issues 7 through 10. Which is 4 books, and then next week, next month actually, which is also next week, the 11th issue will come out, which means that we'll have another review for that issue, because that's one of those standalone ones that shows you like it introduces you to a character so that you can kind of get into their character immediately when the story arc starts, which is what they did with the Sorceress and the Wizard, I think. Which were the Michael Moresi books. And yeah, I really enjoyed this one. I thought it was good. Vanish number 5 starts the story arc, and this one was also pretty good. It reminded me of one of those episodes of Moon Knight where they were in the hospital trying to figure out if it was real or not real, and I thought that was really good. I enjoyed that kind of connection that I made in my mind about these two things, and I thought it was pretty enjoyable. This is also the start of the second story arc, so I have to go back and review the first 4 at some point. You have Lord of the Jungle number 4. This one kind of finally stops telling you about the original story of Tarzan and focuses on this modern story that they're trying to tell, because this is basically more or less like a Batman Year One version of the Tarzan story, and it basically has this kind of like, you know, feeling of like the Tarzan as a child or as a teenager, and then Tarzan as a grown man, and kind of dealing with the fact that there's a situation when he's young that affects his situation as an old man, and he has to balance these two things out, and you have to learn about them concurrently, and I thought it was pretty good. You have Dawn Attack number 3, which is probably the best Dawn Attack book we've had so far, and I really enjoyed the ending of this one. It was kind of harsh, but it kind of made the story feel legit and kind of like it's going somewhere, and I liked that a lot. I thought it was good. I'm very excited to see where this goes. Then we have Dead Romans, number 1. This one is really, really enjoyable. It kind of reminds me a lot of Barbarians because it does kind of have these same characters. It has a dude called Arminius, who's a Roman turned barbaric, I guess. He kind of joins forces with the Teuton tribes, or the Germanic tribes that live in this forest in Germania, as they're trying to, you know, fight off the expansion of the Roman Empire. And it kind of feels different from Barbarians, though, because the character that's you know, the lover of Arminius is different from the one that I know from that series. But it's very good. I really enjoy this. I think the Shadowline line of comic books is pretty interesting, and so far I'm enjoying what I've read from that Shadowline, from the Shadowline line of comics. But some of them are good, some of them are not that good. One of them that's not that good is The Last Barbarians. Honestly, the problem with this one isn't that I don't like it. I think that it's fine. It's just the art style is a bit off. It's kind of weird because it's like 3D. And initially I thought it looked really good, but when I was reading this, I thought it didn't look that great. So I'm kind of wishy-washy on the art style, but also the story just hasn't gone anywhere, even though this is only 6 issues, right? So, and I think this is issue 2, but at this point you would kind of think they know what they're going to do, and no one has said anything about what exactly is happening, right? So, I don't know. I also don't feel like I know anything about the characters in this, so I can't connect with the characters. I don't know what the story is about, and they're a third of the way through the story. I just don't know that I'm excited to see what's going on, right? So, I don't know. I really like these covers, though, and I might just continue to collect it for the covers, because if the story is even like mildly interesting, it'll be fine. But the problem is that so far it hasn't been, right? So, it is what it is. We have Barbarella number 1. This is the second series by Sarah Hoyt. This is kind of the continuation of that first series that I reviewed on the channel. This is fine. The story is good, but the art style is a bit off. However, I got used to it by the second issue, which is something that I'll talk about in a bit, because I also got it this month. So I don't think it's a big problem, but it just kind of, the first one felt really awesome. It had great art, it had good story, and this one only has one of those two things, right? So it's kind of not as good, and it doesn't feel that great. So I don't know, but I love these covers. I like these stories. So for now, I will continue to collect it, even though, you know, I might not end up finishing it up. Red Sonja Unbreakable. I didn't really care too much about this issue, but the last issue was better, even though it wasn't significantly so. Like, it was just like, okay. And at this point, I do think that I'm probably finished with collecting Red Sonja works for the time being, unless, you know, something happens and, you know, I really enjoy, you know, another one. So, yeah, then we have Rogue Sun number 11. This is the penultimate book in this first story arc, which is great. We'll finally be able to review Rogue Sun, which is nice. I'm very excited about that. And this one was also really, really good. I did enjoy it a lot. I don't remember exactly what happened here, but I just remember that I had a really good time reading this. So, yeah, that's kind of what sucks about comic books sometimes, is that there's so little that happens in each book that you kind of forget. You just kind of remember the impressions of the book. So, yeah. Moon Knight 21, like I said the other day, I think. I'm probably going to finish Moon Knight, or finish collecting it with the Venom issue, because I'm kind of tired of this series, right? So I like it, I find it enjoyable, but I don't need 30 issues of Moon Knight. I honestly thought it was going to end sooner, but it just hasn't. So, you know, it is what it is. You have Digitaurus, and this one has been unhauled. I just still have it so I could talk about it. I didn't like this. It was bad. It was not enjoyable. The art style was bad. The story was bad. Nothing about this was redeeming except for the cover. And I love this cover, but I can just find the artist online, copy their image, and just keep that instead of having to have this volume, right? So, or this issue. So I think I'm going to get rid of this. So actually, I am going to get rid of this. I just have to wait and see if I want to sell it or if I just want to drop it off at half-price book sometime, right? So yeah, then we have Inferno Girl Red #3. This is the end of this story arc. And, well, it wasn't as great as I thought it would be. It wasn't bad. I enjoyed it. I had a good time with it. I really like Cassia as a character. And her mom and her relationship with her mom are really, really good. But the superhero aspect wasn't that super. Like, it was kind of middling. It was like, all right. Mostly it was in like a character-driven story, which is fine. But, you know, I do want that Power Rangers action that I don't really feel like I'm getting from this, even though it clearly is a freaking Power Ranger, right? So, I don't know. Moving on to the last things here. We have Red Sonja #5. End of the story. I thought it was okay. It kind of gets into that, like, meta thing that has been popular with Image lately, which is like, you know, you have 1,000 different origins, and the reason for that is because there's this god looking out for you. And in this case, it's not the writers. It's actually this goddess called Skathash, who is a Celtic goddess. If I remember correctly, the first time I heard about this goddess was in these books called The Secrets of the Immortal Nicholas Flamel, or something like that. They were really, really good, actually. I really enjoyed those books. But I've never really heard of Skathash outside of that. And I didn't really know that she was the patron goddess of Red Sonja, but it kind of works, I guess. However, even though it did kind of lean into that, and I even wrote a kind of scathing review about it on the League of Comic Geeks. Thinking about it now, I think it's not as bad as I thought. It was just kind of annoying that it's like, I've been keeping up with the series, and then it didn't really do anything with the initial premise of, like, Red Sonja meeting herself as a child. And, you know, it is what it is. But there's some poignant kind of dialogue here at the end of the story. And the story ends in a way that kind of is exciting, because it's like, oh, crap, Red Sonja now is, you know, this other character. And I think the Red Sonja that shows up at the end of this is actually the original Red Sonja from the original Robert E. Howard story that then got turned into this, like, Hyperborean Sonja, right? So it's kind of interesting how that kind of works. And, you know, I'll figure it out, how I feel about it, and I'll do a review for it here soon, because that's the end of that series. Then we have Barbarella #2. Like I said, it's much better now. I'm okay with the art style. The story is still good. However, that rabbit character guy still looks off. But, you know, it is what it is. I like this cover, although it has nothing to do with the story. But, you know, Barbarella looks good, so it is what it is. And that's kind of like a shark tornado thing. So, that's cool. And then finally, Dark Knights of Steel #10. And this is probably the best Dark Knights of Steel book I've read ever. Like, out of the 10 that I've read, this is probably the best one. Actually, I think I've read more than 10 because there's some short stories. You know, whatever. Out of the 10 or 12 that I've read, this one was the best one. I really like this cover, you know, with the Joker and this kind of card motif. Really, really good stuff. But maybe it should have had, like, this awesome reveal that happened in this part of the story, like 3 issues ago. But, you know, the story's about to end, so I'm fine with it. But I would have liked it to be a little bit more fast-paced and a little bit more interesting. But what happens in this book is really, really good. I liked it a lot. So, yeah, I do have to do a comic books by the issue for that one. So, I'll get around to that soon. So, yeah, let's look at the manga now. I don't really have too much manga here physically. Let me see if I have any stuff that I read digitally that I will forget to mention if I don't look at my book. Okay, let's see. So I read the first arc in the Piccolo Saga for Dragon Ball, which is the Tien Shinhan arc, basically the Budokai Tenkaichi, you know, whatever, the Strongest Under the Heavens tournament, where Goku comes back after 3 years of training. And I read 6 volumes of Blue Lock, which are really, really good. The Tokyo Expedition arc for Haikyuu, which is also really, really good. The first volume of Ace of Diamond, which I really enjoyed. However, I don't know if I'm going to continue to collect that because it's just so many volumes, and I really don't like collecting that many volumes digitally when they're full priced. So I'll try to figure out something for that. Or the first volume of Harukan I received, which is all right. I would prefer to collect that physically, but honestly, I don't really know if I'm going to collect it or not at all. So yeah, that's it for the digital stuff. Let's look at the physical stuff really quickly. We have Who Wants to Marry a Billionaire, which is a really good book, actually. I wanted to collect all of it as soon as I could, but they didn't have the second one in store, so I couldn't buy it during the Barnes & Noble sale, which kind of sucks, but, you know, it is what it is. It's a very good book. The artist, Mario, has very good art, and the story is very interesting because, you know, it is ecchi, it is a harem kind of thing, but it's kind of a bachelor show, but also the women that are in this are all psychotic or crazy. 3 of them were ex-convicts. One of them is a compulsive liar. One of them has, you know, some sort of like addiction to, you know, sexuality or something like that. You know, there's all sorts of crazy characters in this, and it's very interesting. So I really enjoy that. If you guys are, you know, okay with, you know, very ecchi, kind of very raunchy stuff, you guys should pick it up as well, because it's really, really good. We have Grass Ross #2. Really good book here. It's kind of interesting how Aku changes up in this book, because initially he's a good boy. You know, nothing's going to happen because, you know, the thing with the Red Moon was not real. However, it seems like it is, and Aku is some sort of, you know, demon child, and we get to see that here. And it also ends on a kind of big cliffhanger, because there's these characters that join with Aku, then they separate, and then years pass, and he comes back, and it looks interesting how that's going to work out. And then we have Green Blood #1. This one was good. It's supposed to be a Western, but the first part of the story doesn't really happen in the West. It happens somewhere in New York, so I'm curious to see how it's going to end up that way. But the style here is really, really good. Masumi Kagisaki's artwork is amazing, and the story was interesting, even though it wasn't really what I was expecting initially. So yeah, I'm looking forward to collecting more of this, but who knows when I'll be able to. Then we have Go-Go Loser Ranger #3. This was honestly a pretty good book. By the end of it, I was very invested in what's going on. And the only real complaint I have about this is that I don't like this cover, because I don't really care about this character. It really should have been this character on the cover, since the, you know, book is black and it would match him, but it is what it is. It's pretty good though. Chain Soldier #3, really good book. I really enjoyed it. I love this story so much. I enjoy that the manga is like, I'm going to write an erotic story, it's going to have action, and that's exactly what you get, and it's very, very good. And the way the characters, you know, interact with each other and with the main character are also very, very well done, so I really enjoy these interactions a lot. And the plot is very quickly thickening, and we are getting a lot of interesting stuff. Honestly, it kind of reminds me of what's that book, the Square Enix book, Dragon something, Ragnar Crimson, something like that. But, you know, I actually really didn't enjoy Ragnar Crimson after the 3rd volume, and at this point, I am really enjoying this one, so I think this is better than Ragnar Crimson, but, you know, it kind of depends. A lot of people seem to like that series. I don't really get why, but, you know, it is what it is. Then we have Komi Can't Communicate #23. Honestly, probably the best volume in this story, and this little section of black that you see in here is a bunch of very beautiful, you know, bits of artwork there that are just so good. So yeah, if you guys were kind of not happy with Komi and you kind of stopped collecting it, you know, early on, kind of like at like 10 volumes, you guys should just pick this one up, read it, and then if you like it, go and collect the rest of them in between. And if not, you know, kind of get rid of Komi Can't Communicate, because you're not going to like it. So then we have the Boxer, which is really awesome. I really enjoyed this a lot. I don't really love the thinness compared to the price of this book, but it's one that honestly provided me so much interest that I'm going to overlook it. I'm just going to get the second one, even though I don't like the pricing for it, because I think this only has like 100 and something pages in it. Barely 200 when it costs $20, even though Solo Leveling has almost 300 per book. So, you know, it is what it is, but really good book. I still don't know who this character on the cover is, because it doesn't match any of the characters in the first volume, but it's a very good story. I definitely recommend it if you guys are into sports series at all. We have Drifting Dragons #12, which is also really good. I thought this volume was amazing. It kind of deals with the repercussions of the last few volumes, which is like, is Vanderbilt gonna stay with the crew or not? And then it also kind of takes a detour from that and focuses on the crew that didn't go save her, and what they were doing while she was away, which is really good. I really enjoyed that. It was very nice slice of life kind of stuff. Then we have Beauty and the Feast number 7. I love this book. The only thing I do want to mention is that I think the author is just getting like more invested in the kind of raunchy aspects of the series the more time goes on, because so many of these chapters have had a very sexy image associated with them at the beginning of the chapter page. And also there's been like 3 bath scenes in this book where there was no bath scenes in any of the other books up to like volume 5 or something. So this series is only 11 volumes, so we're almost to the end here. But I think that the manga at this point was trying to kind of rile up people and kind of get them interested in the the eventual like get together of Shuko and Yamato. So it's pretty interesting how that goes, and I quite like it. I think it's really good, and the stuff that happens in this book are also very nice and wholesome, and there's some really good kind of ridiculous situations that happen here. So yeah, overall, I had a really good month this month of reading and media consumption in general, and I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Sorry it's so long. I don't know why. I'm feeling off today, so I'm talking more than usual, which is not saying much because I talk like out of my ass like crazy. But I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, please leave a like, subscribe, and comment down below. Let me know what you thought. Let me know what you guys have been reading this month and what your favorite read of the month was, if you guys would be kind enough to do that. And yeah, thank you guys very much for watching, and see you guys later.